Welcome back, gang, to another episode of Chronicles from the Kit. I'm Chuck Peterson here with another story for you this month. One of the places I like to go from time to time is the NAMM show in Anaheim, California. Now, for those of you musicians who are not familiar with that name, the NAMM show is pretty much the Comic-Con for musicians. It's great to go there to check out all the products that the different instrument companies have to offer, because they're always coming up with something new. My go-tos are the Gretsch drum booth. These are my favorite drums to play. So I'm always hanging out with those guys, seeing what they come up with. If I had my choice to play Gretsch all the time, I would, because I just love the way they sound. Pisces cymbals, been with them since 2011. And so they're always coming up with something great, something new. Remote drum heads, met up with those guys out there, very nice people. I've seen the innovative percussion sticks, whom I have an endorsement with. I've always seen them out there before I grabbed an endorsement with these guys. So you get to see a lot of these different products and all that stuff. And on top of that, you get to hang with musicians that you've never met, and you meet them for the first time. You get to hang out with musicians that are from your hometown, and you don't get to see often because we're always constantly working, so we don't get to see each other. So this is a chance for us to get to hang. And another cool thing is I've gotten to meet a lot of my musical heroes while at the NAMM show and get to hang with them and talk with them, and they're all very pleasant when I talk with them. Some of them helped me get my Piety endorsement and all that stuff, so that was really cool for them to do that. And then you'll run into people that you don't expect to run into. Like one time I ran into Sinbad. I didn't know he was a musician, but I ran into him, met him really quick. He apologized for having to rush off because he was late for a get-together with some of his friends, but he took a little bit of time to talk with me and shook my hand and all that stuff. He was cool. But another big surprise was I was actually on my way to the Gretsch booth to say hi to Andrew, great friend of mine. He's the artist relation manager for Gretsch. Talk with him, check out the products and all that stuff. So I had a map, and I had thought that the Gretsch booth was on the second floor. So there's 3 floors, the place is huge. So I took the escalator up to the second floor, and I'm walking down the corridor, and I'm walking right next to this dude who looked really familiar. So I looked to my left, and I said, I said, that looks like Thomas Gibson. I was like, nah, it can't be him. I've never seen him with an instrument in his hand or anything like that. So, and he's an actor, so I don't think he would be here. It's probably his doppelganger or something. So I keep walking, and I'm still neck and neck with him walking, and then I heard him say something to his friend that he was with, and I recognized his voice, and I was like, oh wow. I said, it is Thomas Gibson. So if you're not familiar with who Thomas Gibson is, he's an actor who was one of the main characters on the show Dharma and Greg, and he played Hotch on Criminal Minds, which is one of my favorite shows. So once I realized it was him, of course I stopped him. And I said, hey, are you Thomas Gibson? And he says, yes, I am. So I was like, wow, okay. I was like, this is cool. I said, hey, Criminal Minds is one of my favorite shows. You did a great job on that show. Love your acting, all that stuff. And he said, thank you. He's very nice. And so my next question is, so what instrument do you play? And he says, I play guitar, but very horribly. And he turned and he said, "This is my guitar teacher," and he introduced me to his guitar teacher. I don't remember what his name was, but and I was like, "Oh, it was like nice to meet you." You know, we just kind of talked for like a good 15 minutes. You know, I told him that a good friend of mine's father had passed away, and he was a huge fan of Criminal Minds. You know, and he had passed a month prior to me going to NAMM. And so I told him, I said, yeah, it would have been nice to go back home and, you know, and tell him that I met you and all that stuff. He would have been so thrilled, you know, and he put his hand on my shoulder. He says, hey, man, I'm sorry for your friend's loss and your loss and all that stuff. So just a sweet dude. And he asked how long I had been playing drums. And at the time it was, you know, like 30-something years, 43 now. And so I asked him how long he was playing guitar, and he told me not very long, but I don't think he gave me a specific, you know, time frame of how long he's been playing. If he did, I didn't remember because I was shell-shocked to see him, you know. So it was just a really cool conversation to have with him and all that stuff. And, you know, his guitar teacher took our picture and whatnot, so I'll post that at the end of the video. But again, it was really cool to meet him and to kind of chill with him for about 15 minutes and talk and all that stuff. And again, he was a really nice dude. So again, going to NAMM, you never know who you're going to run into. You never know who you will talk with, and sometimes you may hook up with musicians and start a project. You know, sometimes those things just happen. You know, you may go there and you find yourself having an endorsement deal. You know, it's all about just hanging out, talking with people and all that stuff. So that year was particularly fun. That was around 2017. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that story. So so tune in next month for another story of Chronicles from the Kit. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I will catch you guys next month. Peace.